Hello, I'm the Daily Storyteller, and I'm here to keep you company today. If you've visited my channel before, welcome back. And if this is your first time, I'm so glad to welcome you to the world of stories. I know many of you use these videos to relax or to help fall asleep more easily. So get comfortable, let your body relax, and allow the gentle sound of rain in the background to wash away your stress and worries. In this video, you'll hear chilling stories, most of them based on true events, told with honesty and depth. If you enjoy this content, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Now then, let's begin. That night, Alex never imagined that a routine drive home would turn into a nightmare etched deep in his memory. A man of simple habits, Alex had just wrapped up a demanding business conference in Phoenix, Arizona. Instead of taking the usual route back to Los Angeles, he chose the longer stretch through the vast desert, hoping to savor some solitude after days filled with endless meetings and forced conversations. The clock had just passed midnight when he found himself alone on Highway 60, cutting through the expansive Arizona desert. The night sky stretched endlessly above him, a dazzling canvas of stars illuminated by a radiant full moon. There was no city light to dim the brilliance of the heavens, just the raw beauty of the desert bathed in ethereal silver glow. The radio quietly played a classic Eagles tune, and Alex tapped his fingers rhythmically on the steering wheel, feeling a rare sense of peace he hadn't known in months. But peace in the desert is fragile. It began with a subtle shudder. At first, Alex thought he had just hit a rough patch of road. Then the engine coughed violently, sputtering as if gasping for breath. The dashboard lights flickered urgently, casting an ominous red glow across the interior of his old sedan. Panic tightened in his chest as the engine faltered and then went completely silent. Alex eased the car onto the shoulder of the highway. The sudden quiet was almost deafening, replacing the steady hum of the engine and the soft melodies playing on the radio with an eerie stillness. His heart hammered so loud he feared it might burst through his ribs, drowning out the sound of his ragged breaths. He reached for the ignition key again and again, but the engine refused to turn over. No clicks, no sputters, just cold, unyielding silence. Outside, the desert wind whispered, carrying with it a chill that seemed to seep into his bones. Alex pulled out his phone, already expecting the worst. No signal. Of course, no signal. He sat back, trying to steady his breathing, weighing his options. The next town was at least 30 miles ahead, but walking through that pitch-black desert seemed like a death wish. He had some water and snacks, but no flashlight, no flares, nothing to signal for help. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The vast emptiness of the desert pressed in from all sides. Every rustle of the dry bushes, every shift of shadow took on a menacing life of its own. The isolation gnawed at Alex's mind, and fear began to take root. Then, through the darkness, headlights appeared behind him. Relief surged through him as he switched on his hazard lights and stepped out, waving his arms desperately. But the car didn't slow. It roared past, throwing up a choking cloud of dust. Alex caught a fleeting glimpse of a dark sedan as its taillights faded into the night. His throat tightened with frustration. "Thanks for nothing," he muttered, retreating back into the relative safety of his broken-down car. He tried the ignition again, hope flaring for a moment, only to be crushed by the same dead silence. And then the headlights returned. At first, Alex thought it was a different car, but as the vehicle grew closer, a sinking feeling settled in his stomach. It was the same dark sedan. His heart leapt. Maybe this time they'd noticed his distress and turned back to help. But once again the car sped past without slowing. Only this time it seemed to hesitate just a little, as if toying with him. Alex's fingers clenched the steering wheel tightly. His pulse pounded in his ears. Something wasn't right. The desert, which had earlier seemed serene and beautiful, now felt cold and threatening. Every shadow morphed into potential danger. Every whisper of wind sounded like a warning. He locked the doors, suddenly painfully aware of how exposed he was. Time crawled. 10 minutes, 15. The headlights appeared again, the same sedan, circling like a predator. This time it slowed enough for Alex to catch the silhouette of the driver, a lone figure behind the wheel. But before he could get a better look, the car sped away, swallowed by the darkness. His palms sweated. His breath came fast and shallow. He knew deep down this was no coincidence. Someone was hunting him. Fear turned to dread. The minutes dragged by as Alex sat frozen, eyes locked on the rearview mirror, muscles tense and ready to flee at the slightest sign of danger. Then the headlights appeared once more. The sedan approached, crawling along the shoulder. Alex shrank down in his seat, trying to disappear beneath the glare. The driver turned his head slowly, eyes fixed on Alex as the car passed. In that instant, the chilling certainty washed over him. He had been singled out. This was no random encounter. The predator was toying with its prey. No longer able to bear the tension, Alex made a decision. He had to get out of there. Even if it meant walking into the dark desert night alone, it was better than waiting to see what would come next. Grabbing his phone and water bottle, he took a deep breath, opened the car door, and stepped out into the cool desert air. The silence was absolute. He moved quickly but cautiously, keeping close to the shoulder of the highway. Every rustle in the bushes, every crack of dry twigs underfoot made his heart jump. After what felt like an eternity, Alex spotted the headlights again, this time coming faster. His stomach dropped. He looked frantically for a place to hide, but found nothing but flat desert and sparse scrub. Panic surged. He dove into a shallow ditch just off the road, pressing himself into the earth. Breath held tight in his chest. The sedan pulled up beside him, tires crunching on gravel. The engine idled. A door opened. Footsteps approached. Alex squeezed his eyes shut, trembling. "Hey, are you okay down there?" A calm, concerned female voice broke through the tension. Alex opened his eyes to see a middle-aged woman holding a flashlight, peering down at him. "I'm with Highway Patrol," she said gently. "We got a call about a broken-down vehicle, but it took me a while to find you. Are you hurt?" His shock kept him silent at first. Then, slowly, relief flooded through him. He looked up at her patrol SUV, the flashing light bar on the roof now unmistakable in the moonlight. In his panic, he'd mistaken it for an ordinary car. "You kept driving past," he said, voice barely a whisper. She nodded. "I was searching for you." "Your car was empty, so I figured you might have started walking. I did a few passes trying to spot you." Alex laughed nervously, the tension breaking in an almost hysterical burst. The officer introduced herself as Sarah and offered to take him back to his car. She called a tow truck and stayed with him until help arrived. As they sat together in her warm patrol vehicle, Sarah explained the stretch of highway was infamous, not just for breakdowns, but for lost signals and a loneliness that could play tricks on the mind. Isolation, darkness, unfamiliar surroundings, a perfect recipe for fear. Watching his car being hauled away, Alex felt embarrassment mingle with lingering unease. He'd let his imagination spiral, turning an act of kindness into a personal nightmare. Yet, despite rationalizing the experience, the feeling of danger lingered, a shadow in his mind. Months later, Alex still drives that road, but only in daylight, with a full tank of gas and a fully charged phone. Every time, he silently thanks Officer Sarah. But sometimes, on dark nights when he drives alone, he finds himself glancing nervously in the rearview mirror, just a little more often than necessary. Because the truth is, on long, lonely roads, the greatest danger may not be what hides in the shadows. Sometimes, it's the shadows our own minds create. As dawn began to gently pry open the night's dark grip, Alex found himself sitting alone beside the roadside, the remnants of fear still clinging stubbornly to his nerves. The desert, which had transformed into a threatening expanse only hours before, now appeared calm, almost forgiving under the soft morning light. The endless blue sky stretched overhead, its warmth slowly easing the chill from the night air. Yet Alex knew something had changed inside him. That night had peeled back the layers of his complacency, exposing the fragile vulnerability hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. He had always thought of himself as cautious, prepared, practical, but facing the vast silence of the desert and the menacing presence of that dark sedan, he realized how little control he truly had. As the tow truck rumbled away with his car in tow, Alex watched in silence, memories flooding his mind. The haunting image of the driver's silhouette lingered like a shadow at the edge of his vision. Who was that man? Why had he circled him again and again without offering help? Was it malice or something else, something darker? He never found the answers, but the questions refused to fade. Returning to his home in Los Angeles, the comfort of familiar walls did little to soothe the restlessness that had settled in his soul. For weeks afterward, every noise in the night, every unfamiliar shadow seemed to echo the desert's threat. His dreams were restless, haunted by the relentless headlights and the cold stare of a man who played cat and mouse with him on that lonely highway. Friends and family noticed the change, a tighter jaw, a distant gaze, but Alex said little. How could he explain the nameless fear that gripped him, the feeling that somewhere out there, in the vast darkness, something was watching? Months passed, and life slowly found its rhythm again. Alex returned to his routines, to work, to the city's constant noise. Yet he never took that highway again after dark. No longer was it a path home. It had become a reminder of his own fragility, of the shadows that lurk in the corners of the mind. Then came a restless night, a night when sleep refused to come, and the mind spun its endless loops of what-ifs and maybes. Alex found himself behind the wheel again, driving through the quiet streets, the city's lights flickering past like distant stars. The hum of the engine and the rhythm of the tires on asphalt were strangely comforting. But as he passed the city limits, the road stretched out before him, dark, empty, beckoning. His heart quickened involuntarily as he approached a stretch of road that reminded him painfully of that fateful night in the desert. He fought the urge to glance in the rearview mirror, but curiosity, stronger than caution, won out. The mirror reflected nothing at first. Then, at the edge of his vision, a pair of headlights blinked into existence. Faint, distant. Alex's breath caught. The lights didn't grow closer. They didn't fade. They simply waited. A shiver ran down his spine as the truth settled once more. The darkness held secrets, some visible only to those brave or foolish enough to look. Over the following weeks, Alex's experience turned into a quiet obsession. He scoured online forums and news reports for similar stories of unexplained encounters on lonely roads. What he found was a patchwork of tales. Travelers stranded with no help, cars passing by but never stopping, shadows moving just beyond the headlights' reach. Some whispered of highway phantoms. Others spoke of darker things, malicious presences preying on the isolated and the vulnerable. One name appeared repeatedly, the lonely highway spectre, a figure seen by many but caught by none. Alex began to piece together a pattern. The desert highways were more than just roads. They were borders, thresholds between worlds, places where reality thinned and something else crept close. Despite the warnings in his mind, Alex felt drawn back to the desert, compelled by a need to confront the unknown. One evening, he packed a small bag, flashlight, water, a fully charged phone, and a recorder, and set out once again. This time, he was determined not to be a helpless victim, but a witness. The desert greeted him with the same cold silence. The stars glittered like watchful eyes overhead, and the full moon cast long shadows on the cracked earth. Hours passed with no sign of the mysterious sedan or its driver. Just as Alex was beginning to doubt his own sanity, the silence shattered. Headlights appeared, piercing the night like twin beacons. The familiar dark sedan glided along the road, its engine a low purr that seemed to resonate deep in the bones. This time, Alex did not freeze. He stepped out of his car, flashlight raised, voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. "Who's there?" he called into the night. The sedan slowed, then stopped. A door creaked open. A figure emerged, wrapped in shadows. Alex's heart hammered as the figure stepped forward into the light. But it wasn't a man. It was something else, something blurred at the edges of reality, a shifting presence that defied clear form. Alex raised his flashlight higher, illuminating pale, shifting shapes and eyes that gleamed with an unnatural light. He took a step back, but the entity did not advance. Instead, it spoke, not in words, but in feelings. Loneliness, yearning, a deep, aching sadness. Alex understood, suddenly, that this presence was a lost soul, trapped between worlds, endlessly circling the highways in search of something it could never find. The fear gave way to a strange compassion. "I'm not here to hurt you," Alex whispered. The presence flickered, as if acknowledging his words. Then, slowly, it receded, dissolving into the desert night. Alex returned home with a story that few would believe but many would understand. The story of a night spent on the border between worlds, where fear and hope intertwined. He never saw the dark sedan again, but the memory stayed with him, an indelible mark on his soul. And sometimes, when the night is still and the road stretches endlessly before him, he looks to the rearview mirror and wonders what else might be watching, waiting just beyond the shadows. It was supposed to be a fresh start for Jake and his father Alex. After a painful divorce and the chaos of city life, inheriting the old family farm 6 months ago was a chance to rebuild, to find peace away from the noise and broken relationships. The sprawling fields, the weathered barns, and the endless sky promised a simpler life, grounded in the earth and seasons. But the farm held secrets, secrets buried deep beneath the soil, hidden in time and shadow. On a hot July afternoon, the sun burning fiercely overhead, Jake and his father set out to dig a new well. The old one had long since run dry, and without water, the farm's revival was impossible. Armed with shovels, sweat pouring down their faces, they worked steadily, the rhythmic scraping of the blade biting into earth the only sound. After hours of digging, the shovel struck something hard. Alex's arms jolted with the unexpected impact. He paused, wiping the sweat from his brow with a muddy hand. "Jake," he called down into the hole, "grab the flashlight, will you? I think we hit something." Jake shone the beam into the dark cavity, illuminating a metal container embedded in the earth. It was about the size of a small suitcase, its surface corroded by time but still solid. Curious and cautious, they worked carefully to unearth the mysterious box. By sunset they hauled it out, the fading light casting long shadows over the field. Back in the barn, under the harsh glare of floodlights, Alex examined their find. The container was sealed tight, no obvious way to open it, except for a rusted latch that creaked with effort. On one side, faded letters hinted at a name, but years of corrosion made it indecipherable. "Should we open it?" Jake asked, excitement barely contained in his voice. Alex hesitated, a knot tightening in his stomach. Part of him wanted to call the authorities, fearing what they might uncover. But curiosity, that persistent whisper, won out. With a crowbar and a deep breath, they pried the lid open. A musty, damp smell escaped, like a cellar long forgotten. Inside, wrapped carefully in waxed paper, lay a stack of photographs, documents, and a small leather-bound journal. Alex picked up the first photo, holding it under the light. It showed a young woman in her early 20s, smiling softly at the camera. Her hairstyle and clothing suggested the 1960s, a snapshot frozen in time. On the back, faint ink spelled out a name, Sarah Milligan, 1964. Jake leaned over, eyes wide. "Who's she, Dad?" Alex shook his head, the name tugging at a forgotten corner of his mind. "I don't know, but I think this farm knows her." They spent the next hour unraveling the box's contents. More photographs depicted Sarah at different spots around the farm, smiling by the barns, standing in fields they now tended. Letters, yellowed and brittle, spoke of family ties, fears, and a life interrupted. Then the leather journal fell open. A newspaper clipping slipped out, the headline chilling in the dim light. "Local woman missing for 3 months. Family farm in mourning." Alex's heart pounded as he read. Sarah Milligan had vanished that summer in 1964. Despite exhaustive searches, no trace was ever found. The article hinted that her father, James Milligan, the farm's owner, was the primary suspect, but was never charged. Jake's voice broke through the silence. "Dad, do you think this is some kind of evidence?" Alex nodded slowly, swallowing hard. The farm's promise of new beginnings suddenly felt heavy with history and suspicion. Within hours, police were at their doorstep. Deputies and detectives combed through the farmhouse and surrounding fields, turning the quiet farm into a whirlwind of investigation. Crime scene units took photographs, gathered evidence, and questioned Jake and Alex separately. The media caught wind quickly. Reporters flooded the once peaceful town, drawn by the decades-old mystery resurrected in this sleepy corner of the countryside. Jake's initial excitement about their discovery faded, replaced by a somber awareness. The farm wasn't just land and buildings, it was a canvas painted with secrets, shadows, and pain. One night, Jake asked the question that haunted them both. "Do you think Uncle James did it? Do you think he killed Sarah?" Alex pulled his son close, the weight of uncertainty heavy on his chest. "I don't know, Jake. I really don't know." As the investigation deepened, old case files were reopened. Witnesses were interviewed again, pieces of the puzzle slowly falling into place. Sarah had been engaged, eager to leave the farm and start a new life with her fiancé. Her father had opposed the marriage, wanting her to stay and help run the family business. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, but no concrete proof ever emerged. Months passed before Alex and Jake were allowed back into their home. The police found no new evidence but kept the case open. Returning felt like stepping into a different world. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind in the fields seemed to whisper of long-buried tragedies. Alex avoided the spot where they'd found the box, uneasy as if Sarah's spirit lingered there. Yet they stayed, partly because they had nowhere else to go, and partly because they felt a responsibility. They owed it to Sarah to uncover the truth, to bring her story out of the shadows after so many years of silence. The weeks that followed brought no relief, only more questions. The farm, once a symbol of hope and renewal, now seemed haunted not just by memories, but by the weight of its own history. Alex found himself drawn deeper into the mystery, spending hours at the local library, poring over old newspapers, town records, and archives. He learned that Sarah Milligan's disappearance had been one of the most talked-about cases in the region for decades. A young woman vanished without a trace, leaving behind a family torn apart by suspicion and grief. As he sifted through faded clippings, a chilling realization settled over him. The farm he had inherited was not just land and buildings, it was the stage for a tragedy whose echoes still resonated through time. One article mentioned that James Milligan, Sarah's father, had been a man of strict principles, someone who believed deeply in the family legacy and the future of the farm. Yet beneath that stern exterior lay a man broken by loss, forever shadowed by the unsolved disappearance of his daughter. Alex's mind reeled. Was this the same man whose name now appeared on the deed of the farm he called home? The uncle he had never met? The connection was more than coincidence. It was family. The next morning, as sunlight filtered weakly through the curtains, a police car was waiting in Alex's driveway. Detective Reeves, the lead investigator assigned to the reopened case, stepped out. "Mr. Collins," she greeted, her tone professional but tinged with sympathy. "We've identified DNA on some of the items found in that container. It matches Sarah Milligan. We're now treating this as a homicide investigation." Alex nodded, feeling the ground shift beneath him. "Did you know anything about this before finding the box?" Reeves asked, her eyes searching his. "No," Alex replied firmly. "I inherited the farm from my uncle 6 months ago. I'd never even met him." The detective's brow furrowed. "Your uncle? James Milligan?" "Yes." Reeves exhaled slowly. "This complicates things. We'll need to conduct a thorough search of the property. You and your son might need to find somewhere else to stay for a while." The weight of that moment pressed heavily on Alex's shoulders. Yet he agreed, knowing that uncovering the truth meant sacrifice. Days turned into weeks as police and forensic teams combed every inch of the farm. The once peaceful homestead became a chaotic crime scene. Lights flashing, boots pounding on soil, voices murmuring in urgency. Alex and Jake moved into a motel in town, watching helplessly as their home was dissected every corner scrutinized for hidden evidence. News of the discovery spread beyond local papers, attracting reporters and true crime enthusiasts eager to unravel the decades-old mystery. The quiet farm became a focal point of media frenzy. Jake, once excited by the adventure of discovery, now wrestled with fear and confusion. The innocence of childhood gave way to a sobering understanding of pain, loss, and betrayal. One evening, as they sat together in their motel room, Jake's voice broke the silence.
Dad, do you think Uncle James did it? Did he really kill Sarah?
Alex swallowed hard, searching for words that would ease his son's heartache.
I don't know, Jake.
I wish I had an answer. As the investigation unfolded, more pieces emerged, painting a portrait of a family fractured by secrets. Neighbors spoke of arguments, hidden resentments, and a father desperate to hold on to what he feared losing. Yet, no definitive proof ever came to light. The case was haunted by the absence of answers, the silent spaces between facts filled with suspicion and pain. After nearly 2 months, Alex and Jake were allowed to return to the farm. The police had found no new evidence, and while the investigation remained open, the authorities had no grounds to keep them away. Stepping back onto the farm felt like crossing a threshold into a different reality. The land seemed heavier, charged with memories too painful to ignore. Every creak of the floorboards whispered stories of the past. Every shadow in the fields seemed to flicker with unseen presence. Alex found himself avoiding the spot where the container was discovered, as if Sarah's spirit lingered there, watching, waiting. Yet they stayed, rooted not just by circumstance, but by a growing resolve. They owed it to Sarah to seek the truth, to give voice to a story silenced for far too long. In quiet moments, Alex reflected on the fragile line between past and present. The farm was both a refuge and a reminder of loss, of mystery, and of the lives intertwined with this land. He knew some secrets were buried deep, hidden beneath layers of time and silence, but some truths refused to stay hidden forever. And in that knowledge, Alex found a new purpose. To honor Sarah's memory, to heal old wounds, and to build a future grounded not just in soil, but in courage. The first time Alex caught a glimpse of the blue sedan in his rearview mirror, he barely noticed. Just another car on a busy highway during a cross-country trip with Mia, his girlfriend. They had planned this journey for months, a chance to escape the suffocating grind of their New York jobs, to see the vastness of America and reconnect with each other away from the city's relentless pace. The road stretched ahead like a ribbon of possibility. They sang along to cheesy pop songs, laughed at roadside diners, and marveled at the landscapes unfolding outside the windows, but the blue sedan was always there. On the third day, somewhere in Ohio, Alex spotted it again, tailing them a few cars back. He mentioned it to Mia casually, but she shrugged it off as coincidence. Still, an uneasy feeling crept in. It was at a gas station an hour later when he saw it pull in across from them. Still, nothing seemed out of place. The unsettling pattern emerged at lunch in a small Indiana diner. As they packed up to leave, Alex saw the blue sedan pull into the parking lot. The windows were tinted, hiding the driver's face, but the car's persistent presence set the hairs on the back of his neck on edge. "Does that blue car look familiar to you?" Alex asked Mia as they drove away. Mia glanced back, then shrugged. "Maybe it's just a common car. Probably nothing." But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As they crossed into Illinois, the blue sedan seemed to shadow them relentlessly. At every rest stop, every gas station, every time they pulled over to stretch, the sedan appeared. Not too close, never too far, always watching. Alex's tension mounted. He began watching the car in his mirrors, eyes darting constantly. "You're being paranoid," Mia said one evening, but her voice carried an uncertain note. "Why would anyone follow us?" Alex wondered aloud, frustration and fear mingling in his chest. "We're just normal people on a road trip." But the blue sedan was there, a silent shadow stalking their every move. Determined to lose it, Alex took a sudden exit off the highway in Chicago, weaving through suburban streets, taking random turns. For a while, it seemed they had shaken their pursuer. Then, merging back onto a main road, there it was, the blue sedan, tailing them still. Mia whispered, "You were right." Fear hardened into resolve. They couldn't outrun it forever. As night fell, they found themselves on a lonely two-lane highway in western Illinois. No other cars for miles, just their headlights piercing the darkness and the ever-present blue sedan's glow behind them. Alex's hands clenched the steering wheel, white-knuckled. "This has gone on long enough," he said. Mia looked pale in the dashboard light. "Are you sure it's safe to confront them?" Alex shook his head. "I'm not sure about anything anymore, but we can't keep running." They needed answers. Ahead, a dirt road led into a field. Without signaling, Alex turned sharply, tires kicking up dust as they bumped down the uneven track. The sedan followed. Alex stopped, cut the engine, and whispered, "Stay in the car. Lock the doors. If anything happens, drive away as fast as you can." Before Mia could protest, Alex stepped out, eyes adjusting to the darkness, staring into the glare of the sedan's headlights. "Who are you?" he shouted. Silence. Then the driver's door opened. A figure stepped out. The figure stepped forward, bathed in the harsh glare of the headlights, but Alex's eyes struggled to adjust. The silhouette was familiar, yet alien, a ghost from a past he had tried to bury. "Dad?" The word escaped Alex's lips like a whisper, trembling with disbelief. The man nodded slowly, his face aged and weathered, but unmistakable. The father who had abandoned him and Mia 5 years ago now stood just feet away, eyes filled with a complex storm of regret, longing, and fear. "I've been trying to find you," the man said, voice rough with emotion. "It took me a long time to work up the courage to talk." Mia's door creaked open behind Alex, and she stepped out cautiously, clutching his arm. "Is this your girlfriend?" the man asked, glancing between them. Alex nodded, heart pounding. "Yeah. I'm sorry," the man whispered, tears glistening in the headlights. "For everything. I never wanted to scare you." Alex's mind raced. 5 years of silence, years of unanswered questions. Why now? Why like this? Before Alex could find words, Mia stepped closer, her hand slipping into his. "Maybe we should talk." "There's a diner about 10 miles back. We can sort this out over coffee." Alex hesitated, torn between the urge to flee and a desperate need for answers. Finally, he nodded. "But we're taking separate cars. If you try anything, we're gone. Understand?" The man nodded quickly. "Whatever you want." The drive to the diner was tense but quiet. Alex stole glances in the rearview mirror, the blue sedan trailing behind, now less menacing, more vulnerable. Inside the small roadside diner, the smell of coffee and the low murmur of late-night conversations offered a fragile comfort. Alex, Mia, and his father sat in a booth near the window, the weight of years pressing down on the table between them. "How did you find me?" Alex asked. His father swallowed hard. "I saw you in Ohio. I didn't know how to approach you. Every time I got close, I lost my nerve." Alex's throat tightened. "Why did you leave?" The man looked away, pain etched into every line on his face. "I was lost. I made mistakes. Terrible ones. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed you to know I'm here now." Mia reached for Alex's hand. "We've both been carrying a lot." Alex nodded, voice barely audible. This trip was supposed to be about leaving baggage behind. But some baggage finds you. As dawn crept over the horizon, Alex felt a strange mixture of relief and uncertainty. The past had caught up with them, but the road ahead was still unknown. He didn't know if forgiveness was possible, not yet. But for the first time in years, the distance had been bridged. The blue sedan, once a symbol of fear, had become a sign of something fragile and hopeful. As they stepped outside the diner, the sun rising behind them, Alex realized that sometimes the hardest journeys lead us back home. Not just to a place, but to the people we thought we'd lost forever. Eliza Thompson's laughter still echoed in Michael Chen's memory, the last joyful sound he heard before everything changed. Michael was a security officer aboard the Emerald Princess, a luxury cruise ship gliding through the turquoise waters of the Caribbean. It was his third year on the job, and while he had seen his share of incidents, drunken brawls, petty thefts, medical emergencies, nothing prepared him for the mystery that would consume the ship and haunt his thoughts for months. It began like any other day at sea. Starting his shift early in the morning, Michael made his rounds through the ship's corridors and public areas. Most passengers were still asleep, and the quiet halls gave a rare sense of calm. Passing through the grand atrium, he nodded at Eliza, who was just finishing her night shift at the reception desk. "Morning, Michael," she said, stifling a yawn. "Anything exciting planned today?" "Just the usual," he replied with a shrug. She smiled wistfully. "I'm going to watch the sunrise from my favorite spot on the upper deck. Want to join me?" Michael hesitated. Duty called, but the invitation was tempting. "Sure," he said. They made their way to Deck 16, a secluded corner with panoramic views of the endless sea. Leaning against the railing, Eliza closed her eyes, breathing in the salty air. "I love this," she whispered. "No matter how many cruises I do, this never gets old." Michael watched her, struck by the peacefulness etched across her face. Over the following months, Michael and Eliza had become friends, sharing meals, stories, and moments of quiet companionship. Yet, in that moment, he realized how little he truly knew about her. "How long have you been working on cruise ships?" he asked. She smiled softly. 5 years now. I was just supposed to be doing this as a gap year after college, but I fell in love with it. The travel, the people, the adventure. Michael understood completely. Despite the long hours and time away from home, the job held a strange allure. They talked until the sun rose fully above the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Eventually, Eliza yawned again. "I should get some rest," she said. "Thanks for keeping me company." Michael nodded, watching her walk away, the last time he would see her alive. That evening, during the nightly staff meeting, the absence was noticed.
Has anyone seen Eliza Thompson? Their supervisor, Rita, asked, frowning at her clipboard. She was supposed to start her shift an hour ago. Whispers filled the room. Michael spoke up. I saw her this morning. She was heading to her cabin to sleep after her night shift. Rita's frown deepened. Can you check on her?
Make sure she's okay. An uneasy feeling settled in Michael's stomach as he walked to the crew quarters. He knocked on her door, calling her name. No response. Using his master key, he entered, expecting to find her asleep. But the cabin was empty. The bed was neatly made, her uniform laid out, and her phone dark on the nightstand. Panic bubbled beneath his calm exterior. He radioed Rita. She's not here. The cabin looks untouched. A tense silence followed. Initiate search protocol, Rita ordered. The next hours were a blur. Crew and security scoured the ship, checked every nook and cranny from engine rooms to upper decks. Surveillance footage was reviewed, revealing Eliza entering her cabin at 7:12 a.m., closing the door behind her, and then nothing. No footage showed her leaving. No signs of disturbance. It was as if she vanished into thin air. Passengers began to notice the increased security. Rumors spread like wildfire. By morning, the captain made an announcement, pleading for any information. Eliza's picture appeared on screens throughout the ship. The nearest port authorities were contacted. A Coast Guard search was initiated, but the vastness of the Caribbean offered little hope. Michael wrestled with guilt and confusion. If only he had walked her to her cabin, if only he had checked again. The memory of her laughter at sunrise haunted him. Detectives questioned him repeatedly. Did she seem nervous? Distracted? Mention any plans? No, he said. She was happy, relaxed. Looking forward to sleep. The security footage confirmed her last confirmed sighting. And there's no way she could have left without being seen on camera. Michael hesitated. No. Yet the question hung heavy. How had she disappeared without a trace on a monitored ship? Days turned into weeks. The mystery deepened. Eliza's cabin was searched thoroughly. No clues, no signs of struggle. Her belongings were all there. Theories abounded. Some whispered of falling overboard. Others suggested suicide, though those who knew her dismissed it. Most disturbing was the thought that someone on the ship might be responsible. The idea of a killer among them was almost too horrifying to accept. As the ship completed its scheduled cruise and returned to port, forensic investigations intensified. Eliza's family arrived, grief-stricken. Michael watched from a distance, wishing he could offer comfort, but knowing words would fall short. Life aboard the Emerald Princess slowly resumed its rhythm. Yet, for those who knew Eliza, nothing would ever be the same. Her disappearance remained an unresolved ghost. Weeks slipped by aboard the Emerald Princess, but the void left by Eliza's disappearance remained a constant shadow. The ship's corridors no longer echoed with the familiar warmth of her presence. Passengers and crew alike carried an unspoken tension, a quiet unease beneath the surface of daily routines. Michael found himself caught between his duties and a gnawing sense of responsibility. Every shift, every round through the ship's decks, he scanned the crowds, half hoping for a sign, any sign, that Eliza was out there somewhere, safe. But the silence only deepened. The ship's security team grew more vigilant, eyes sharper, conversations hushed. Rumors persisted in the whispers behind closed doors, talk of a hidden danger lurking among them. a mystery cloaked in the glittering facade of luxury. Michael often retreated to deck 16, the very spot where he last saw Eliza. The sunrise still painted the sea in breathtaking colors, but for him the beauty was tinged with sorrow. He'd stand there for hours, staring into the endless blue, wondering where she had gone, what had happened in the moments she vanished. He replayed their last conversation endlessly. Her smile, her laughter, the hopeful plans they had shared for the future. The unanswered questions pressed down on him like the heavy Caribbean heat. The investigation stretched beyond the ship's walls. Coast Guard patrols combed the waters, divers searched beneath the waves, authorities pored over manifests and interviewed every passenger and crew member, but no new leads emerged. Eliza had disappeared without a trace. Her cabin, her belongings, the surveillance footage, all told a story of absence, an impossible vanishing act. Michael's colleagues began to drift away, their sympathy turning to distance as the weeks passed. Life on the ship slowly returned to normal, but Michael remained haunted. One night, during a storm that tossed the ship like a leaf on the ocean, Michael found himself unable to sleep. The creaks and groans of the vessel seemed amplified in the darkness. He wandered to the grand atrium, now deserted except for the soft flicker of emergency lights. Sitting alone, he pulled out his phone and opened a photo album, a collection of moments with Eliza. The memory of her smile was a balm and a wound all at once. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime, a message from an unknown number. It was a single line. "Look deeper." The message sent a shiver down Michael's spine. Was it a prank? A coincidence? Or something more? Unable to resist, Michael began to dig. He accessed security logs, cross-referenced crew schedules, and reviewed footage frame by frame. He spoke in hushed tones to colleagues, searching for the smallest inconsistencies. He uncovered strange gaps, missing footage, unexplained absences. One name kept appearing, an elusive crew member who vanished shortly after Eliza's disappearance, slipping away without explanation. Michael's gut tightened. Was there someone aboard the ship who knew more than they admitted? Someone hiding in plain sight? As days turned into weeks, Michael's obsession grew. He began noticing details others missed. A whispered conversation cut short, a shadow lurking just beyond the camera's view. His colleagues warned him to let it go. The case was closed officially after all, but Michael couldn't. He felt a bond to Eliza, a need to uncover the truth that transcended duty. One evening, after his shift, Michael found himself drawn once more to deck 16. The night was still, the sea a dark mirror reflecting stars. As he gazed out, a sudden movement caught his eye. A figure stood at the railing, a silhouette familiar and impossible. His heart pounded. Was it Eliza? The figure turned, and in the faint moonlight, Michael saw a face, pale, serene, and full of sorrow. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then the figure dissolved into the mist, leaving only the sound of the waves and the whisper of the breeze. Michael stood frozen, a cold realization settling over him. Some mysteries were not meant to be solved. Some disappearances left questions that lingered forever in the depths of the sea and the human heart. Months later, Michael remained aboard the Emerald Princess, carrying the weight of the unsolved mystery. He never stopped hoping, and every dawn he would stand on deck 16, watching the horizon,
listening for the faintest sign of Eliza's laughter, carried away by the endless ocean breeze. Alex and Jamie had been hiking the Appalachian Trail for weeks, seasoned backpackers accustomed to the challenges of long-distance trekking. The wilderness was familiar territory. Its rhythms, its dangers, its unpredictable beauty. Yet nothing in their experience had prepared them for the chilling discovery deep in the Georgia wilderness. The day had begun like any other. They broke camp at dawn, eager to cover good miles before nightfall. The weather was perfect. Cool, crisp air with just enough breeze to keep the bugs at bay. Their pace was steady, punctuated by brief breaks for water and lunch. Spirits were high, conversations flowing easily as they navigated the rugged terrain. But as the sun dipped low, something changed. Jamie spotted it first, a strange symbol carved deeply into the bark of a tree just off the trail, a circle bisected by a jagged line, fresh sap oozing from the cuts. "Weird," Alex muttered. "Never seen anything like that?" Jamie shrugged. "Probably just some kid messing around." But the forest felt different now, eerily silent. The usual chorus of birdsong and insects was muted, replaced by a heavy stillness. Alex's gaze flicked to the shadows, catching movement in his peripheral vision, always just out of sight whenever he turned to look. As they approached a clearing, the scene before them was unsettling. What had once been a peaceful campsite was now a scene of abandonment and chaos. A tent stood in the center, its canvas door flap swinging gently in the breeze. A small cooking pot rested beside a cold fire pit. Backpacks and sleeping bags lay scattered as if their owners had fled in haste. Alex called out, voice echoing in the quiet. "Hello? Anyone here?" Only the rustle of leaves answered. Then Alex noticed the slashes, precise surgical cuts riddling the tent fabric. The entire structure was torn, as though clawed by something sharp and deliberate. Peering inside, he found shredded sleeping bags and scattered clothing. A flashlight lay on its side, its beam casting eerie shadows across the debris. Among the wreckage, Alex spotted a small notebook. The handwriting was shaky, frantic. Flipping it open, Alex read aloud. "Day 3. It's still out there. We can hear it moving at night. The others think I'm crazy, but I know what I saw. It's not a bear. It's not natural. God help us if it gets in." Jamie's face drained of color. "We should leave," he whispered. But as they prepared to leave, Alex's eyes caught a glint near the fire pit, a small silver locket half buried in the earth. Without thinking, he pocketed it. They hurried away, the forest pressing in closer, shadows deepening as twilight descended. Their return to the trail was fraught with unease. Trees seemed to close ranks around them, branches reaching like twisted fingers. Strange symbols appeared carved into the bark, some fresh, some weathered with moss. Jamie pointed to another symbol on an ancient oak, its edges softened by time. "Looks like they're marking a path," he said, voice tense. Alex wasn't convinced. The darkness was nearly complete. Their headlamps cut islands of light in a sea of blackness. Then came the sound, a low, guttural growl, neither fully animal nor human, echoing from all directions. Jamie froze. "What was that?" Alex shook his head, breath catching. Suddenly, movement flickered between the trees. Tall, impossibly thin limbs, and a face more shadow than flesh, eyes glowing like pinpricks of light. "Run!" Alex yelled. Panic drove them forward, branches whipping their faces, roots threatening to trip them. Behind them, shrieks and growls grew louder, inhuman and relentless. They ran blindly, desperate for safety. Finally, they burst onto a gravel road. Ahead, a park ranger station stood bathed in welcoming light. Exhausted and gasping, they stumbled toward the door. Glancing back, Alex saw a figure at the forest's edge, tall, thin, limbs unnaturally long. It raised a clawed hand, then melted back into the darkness. The rangers were skeptical, attributing their story to exhaustion and overactive imagination. Yet, a search of the campsite found no trace. No slashed tent, no gear, no fire remnants. It was as if the entire scene had vanished. Jamie and Alex never finished their hike. By unspoken agreement, they packed up and left. But sometimes, on dark nights when the wind whispers through the trees, Alex shudders, wondering if whatever haunted that clearing is still watching. Alex and Jamie returned home, but the events of that night in the Georgia wilderness refused to leave them. The memory of that tall, inhuman figure, its glowing eyes, its strange, jagged movements, haunted them both. It wasn't just a fear of the unknown. It was a feeling that something far older and more sinister had touched their lives. The locket Alex had found in the abandoned campsite lay heavy in his pocket, a constant reminder of the night's terror. He couldn't bring himself to look at it. The symbols carved into the trees, the eerie growls echoing through the forest, they lingered in his mind, resurfacing in quiet moments. Jamie had tried to rationalize it. It was probably just a bear or some other wild animal, he had said. We were both tired, stressed. We probably just imagined it. But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled upon something far worse than a bear. Weeks passed since they left the wilderness behind, but the unease never left them. Alex continued to work, but his focus was scattered. He spent late nights researching cryptic symbols and strange disappearances in the Appalachian Mountains, hoping to find something that might explain what they had encountered. It wasn't until one late evening that he stumbled upon an article buried deep in an obscure forum, a reference to an old legend from the Appalachian region, a tale almost forgotten by modern times. It spoke of a creature, a being known only as the Watcher, that roamed the woods, feeding off fear and memories. The legend said that those who saw it were marked for life, forever followed by its presence, feeling its watchful eyes even in the safety of their own homes. The more Alex read, the more the pieces began to fall into place. The symbols they had seen in the trees were not random. They were markings, ancient signs used by those who knew how to ward off the Watcher, a protective gesture from a time long past. But the creature's influence, it seemed, couldn't be completely erased. The following months became a blur of sleepless nights for Alex. He couldn't stop thinking about the clearing, the locket, and the creature they had seen. Jamie, meanwhile, seemed to distance himself, throwing himself into work and avoiding the subject entirely. One evening, after a particularly long day, Alex found himself staring at the locket. He had taken it out of his pocket for the first time, its delicate silver chain glinting in the moonlight. The locket was small, about the size of a coin, but its weight felt significant, as though it carried the weight of the entire experience. The chain was broken, but the locket itself was intricately engraved. On one side, there was a pattern of swirling lines, and on the other, a single word, sombra. The word meant shadow in Spanish, and Alex could feel its ominous resonance deep in his gut. Unable to shake his curiosity, Alex decided to visit the site of the abandoned campsite again. Jamie refused to go, unable to shake the fear and the memories of that night. So Alex drove alone, retracing the path they had taken months earlier, feeling as though the forest itself was waiting for him. The air was thick with mist as he arrived at the clearing. It was eerily quiet, the trees seeming to loom closer than he remembered. The ground was still scarred from their earlier flight, but there was no sign of the campsite, no remnants of the abandoned tent, no burnt-out fire pit. The place seemed untouched, as though nothing had ever happened here. And yet, Alex could feel it, the presence that had been lurking, watching since that night. As he walked through the clearing, his eyes caught sight of something glimmering in the underbrush. His heart skipped a beat as he approached it. It was another symbol, freshly carved into the bark of a tree, identical to the one they had seen before. But this time it wasn't just a symbol, it was a warning. Carved around the symbol were words, scratched into the bark in a jagged, desperate script. "Leave now. It is already too late." Fear gripped Alex as he took a step back, the hair on the back of his neck standing on end. The message felt real, as though it was meant specifically for him. His thoughts raced, his mind piecing together the terrifying truth that he had avoided for so long. The Watcher, the creature they had seen, was not just a random being. It was something far older, something that had always existed in the shadows of the forest. He needed to leave. He knew that. But he couldn't escape the nagging feeling that he was already too late, that the Watcher had marked him and Jamie, and that it was only a matter of time before it came for them again. That night, Alex tried to sleep, but every creak of the house, every whisper of wind outside, seemed to carry the presence of the creature. He felt its watchful eyes on him, just beyond the window, lurking in the darkness. The locket lay on the nightstand beside him, its quiet weight like an anchor dragging him deeper into dread. In the early hours of the morning, Alex awoke to a noise, soft at first, like footsteps. His heart raced as he listened intently. It was coming from the woods behind his house. Slowly, he pulled on his shoes, grabbed a flashlight, and crept outside. The cold night air bit at his skin as he stepped into the yard, shining the beam of the flashlight into the dense woods. For a moment, there was nothing, just the swaying of trees and the silence of the night. But then he saw it. A figure, tall and thin, just beyond the tree line, its face hidden in the shadows. It moved slowly, purposefully, toward the edge of the forest. The Watcher. Alex's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't move. He couldn't speak. The figure was real. It was here, and it was waiting. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished into the darkness. The next morning, Alex was gone. No one knew where he had gone, or why. The house was left in disarray, the door slightly ajar. The locket was gone too. Jamie never spoke of the forest again. He couldn't shake the feeling that the creature had taken his friend, that the Watcher had marked them both for reasons unknown. The Appalachian Trail is still a place of mystery, where hikers speak of strange happenings in the woods. Some claim to have seen shadows lurking between the trees. Others feel watched, their every step observed by something far beyond their understanding. But Alex's story is one of the most chilling. They say that sometimes the Watcher doesn't want you to find the answers. Sometimes it simply wants you to be its next story. Jack had always been a man who preferred the open road, the endless highways stretching across Nevada's barren deserts, the thrill of adventure beneath an unforgiving sun. But nothing in his years of driving
could prepare him for the strange passenger who would change everything. It began on a scorching afternoon when Jack was driving his usual route between Las Vegas and Reno, ferrying supplies and occasional passengers through the empty stretches of desert. At a remote gas station just off Interstate 80, a man appeared, disheveled, worn, clutching a small, weathered object wrapped carefully in cloth. "Need a ride?" Jack asked, nodding toward his pickup. The man hesitated, then nodded, climbing in with a wary glance around. "Name's Mike," the man said, voice low and rough. Jack nodded, eyes flicking to the wrapped object on the passenger seat. "What's that you got there?" Mike's hand tightened around the cloth. "Something old, something dangerous." Jack raised an eyebrow but said nothing. As they drove, the desert stretched endless and dry on either side, the sun blazing overhead. Mike remained silent for long stretches, staring out the window with a haunted look. Finally, he broke the silence. "That relic, it's been passed down for generations in my family. No one knows where it truly comes from, only that it's cursed." Jack smirked. "Cursed relics, huh? Sounds like stories my grandma told me." Mike didn't smile. "I thought so too, until strange things started happening. Shadows moving in the corner of my eye, whispers I couldn't explain. And then people started disappearing." Jack's grin faded. "Disappear? Like people vanishing?" Mike nodded grimly. "I'm being hunted, Jack, by something ancient, something not meant for this world." The pickup rattled along the dusty highway, tension growing thicker with every mile. Jack tried to keep the conversation light, but Mike's stories clawed at his nerves. As night fell, the desert transformed. The stars exploded in the sky above, vast and cold. But beneath that beauty lay a silence so deep it swallowed every sound. Mike clutched the relic tighter, mumbling old words under his breath. Jack felt a chill creeping along his spine despite the desert heat. Suddenly, headlights appeared in the distance, low and slow, moving with a predatory patience. "Do you see that?" Mike whispered. Jack nodded. The other vehicle was a black SUV, following them closely. "They're getting closer," Mike said. For hours, the black SUV shadowed them relentlessly, its headlights cutting through the night like blades. Jack's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Who are they?" he demanded. Mike shook his head. "I don't know. But they want the relic, and if they can't have it, they want me." Jack glanced nervously in the rearview mirror. The SUV's lights flashed once, then vanished. A sudden crash echoed from the back of the truck. Jack slammed the brakes, heart pounding. Mike scrambled to the back, clutching the relic tightly. Inside the dim bed of the pickup, shadows danced ominously. Jack shone his flashlight into the darkness. Nothing. But then a low growl vibrated through the air. Something was out there, waiting. Mike hissed, "They're here." Jack's breath came fast. "Hold on." The night exploded into chaos as unseen forces closed in. The night exploded into chaos as unseen forces closed in around Jack and Mike. The low growls grew louder, echoing through the desert air, a primal sound that seemed to ripple with an otherworldly menace. Jack's flashlight flickered wildly, casting jagged shadows that danced like specters on the truck bed's worn metal. Mike clutched the relic to his chest, whispering ancient words that seemed to pulse with a strange power. The cloth wrapped around the relic shimmered faintly, as if responding to the threat. "Stay calm," Mike urged. Whatever comes, it's bound to the relic. We have to protect it. Jack's heart pounded fiercely, adrenaline surging through his veins. His eyes scanned the darkness beyond the truck's cab, but nothing visible emerged, just the oppressive stillness and a sense of something lurking, watching. Suddenly, a figure burst through the brush. A tall, shadowy form with elongated limbs and eyes that glowed faintly red. It moved with unnatural speed and grace, almost slipping through the darkness itself. Jack yelped and slammed his foot on the gas pedal, the truck roaring forward onto the dusty road. Behind them, the black SUV's headlights flashed ominously, and a chilling chorus of growls pursued them relentlessly. As the desert wind whipped past, the relic seemed to hum, resonating with a deep energy that both frightened and fascinated Jack. Mike kept chanting, his voice a steady beacon against the rising tide of terror. "We're almost to the canyon," Mike said, voice strained. "If we can reach the old shrine there, the relic's power might be contained." Jack nodded, muscles taut as he pushed the truck faster, weaving through the rocky terrain that loomed ahead. The SUV was gaining. Suddenly, a massive shadow leapt onto the road, forcing Jack to swerve wildly. The truck skidded dangerously close to the canyon's edge before regaining control. Mike gasped, clutching the relic tighter. "It's getting stronger." The narrow canyon walls closed in around them as they entered the ancient passage. The air grew cooler, the darkness thicker, but the relic pulsed with an otherworldly light, casting eerie patterns on the jagged rocks. At the canyon's heart stood a crumbling stone altar, covered in strange symbols and faded inscriptions. Mike jumped down, moving swiftly to place the relic upon the altar. Jack followed cautiously, flashlight sweeping the shadows. Mike began chanting again, louder this time, voice echoing off the canyon walls. The relic's glow intensified, bathing the clearing in a ghostly light. Suddenly, the growls stopped. Silence. Then a chilling breeze swept through the canyon, carrying whispers of long-forgotten incantations. The shadows around them seemed to dissolve, retreating into the darkness. Jack and Mike stared in awe as the relic's light slowly dimmed, its dangerous energy contained once more. Breathless, Mike turned to Jack. "It's done. For now. But this curse, it never truly ends." Jack nodded solemnly, the weight of the night settling deep in his bones. As dawn broke over the desert, the two men stood together, united by a harrowing experience that neither would ever forget. Sam had always loved the quiet life of the countryside. When he took the job working at the Harrison family farm, nestled deep in the rolling hills of the Midwest, he imagined days filled with fresh air, hard work, and simple routines. But what he found there was far from simple. From the first day, there was an undercurrent of tension that he couldn't explain. The farm was vast and beautiful, but something lingered beneath the surface, a secret hidden in the fields and barns. One afternoon, while clearing out an old storage shed, Sam stumbled upon a dusty, leather-bound journal tucked away in a cracked wooden crate. The cover bore the initials D.H. Curiosity piqued, he opened it carefully. Inside were notes, sketches, and detailed records, scientific observations, genetic charts, and strange experiments that seemed far beyond the scope of ordinary farming. As Sam read further, the journal revealed the work of Dr. Harrison, the farm's patriarch, a man whose obsession with genetics had driven him to push boundaries no one else dared cross. The notes spoke of hybrid creatures, animals infused with human DNA, experiments intended to create new life forms to boost productivity and disease resistance. But the entries grew darker, describing failures, mutations, and creatures that were no longer controllable. Sam's heart pounded as he turned each page. It was like stepping into a world of science fiction, but horrifyingly real. He realized the strange sounds he'd heard at night, the low growls and unnatural movements, weren't just animals. They were something else. One night, Sam was awakened by a piercing scream echoing across the farm. Grabbing a flashlight, he raced toward the barn where the noise had come from. Inside, shadows moved erratically. A creature with glowing eyes darted between stacks of hay, its form distorted and unnatural. Sam froze in terror as the creature let out a low, guttural growl and lunged toward him. He stumbled back, narrowly escaping its grasp. Heart racing, he knew he couldn't stay silent. The farm was a cage for something monstrous. Determined to uncover the truth, Sam confronted Dr. Harrison the next day. The old man's eyes gleamed with a mixture of pride and madness. "Yes," Harrison admitted, "these creatures are my legacy, a new step in evolution. But I lost control. They are dangerous, yes, but they are also my children." Sam recoiled, conflicted between fear and fascination. Why keep this secret? Why hide it? "Because the world isn't ready," Harrison said softly, "and because I must protect them from those who would destroy what I have created." Sam's nights grew restless, filled with nightmares of hybrid creatures stalking the dark fields. He faced a terrible choice: escape and forget everything, or stand and fight to contain the horrors unleashed on the farm. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sam heard the familiar growl again. This time, it was closer, right outside his window. The creature was watching, waiting. The creature's growl outside Sam's window was a haunting reminder of the peril that lurked just beyond the walls. His sleep was shattered, replaced by a relentless vigilance that gnawed at his sanity. Each night the farm seemed to grow darker, more sinister, as if the shadows themselves were alive. Determined to confront the nightmare, Sam armed himself with a flashlight and a sturdy metal rod. Slowly, he crept outside into the chilling night air, the moon casting long, ghostly shadows across the fields. The silence was oppressive, broken only by distant rustling in the barns. Following the sounds, he approached the main barn, heart pounding. Peering through the cracked wooden door, he glimpsed the creature, an unnatural blend of man and beast, its eyes glowing with a fierce intelligence, muscles twitching as it observed him. Sam steadied his breath. "I'm not here to hurt you," he whispered. The creature's growl softened, almost curious. Sam realized these beings were not merely monsters, they were prisoners of Dr. Harrison's ambition, trapped in bodies that defied nature. Days later, Sam confronted Dr. Harrison again, demanding answers and an end to the experiments. Harrison revealed a hidden laboratory beneath the farmhouse, filled with cages and genetic equipment. The air was thick with the scent of chemicals and something unidentifiable, fear perhaps. "I wanted to create a better future," Harrison confessed, "but the cost was too high." Sam vowed to expose the truth, but threats from Harrison and the mysterious nature of the farm's ownership complicated matters. The creature's fate and Sam's own hung in the balance. As dawn broke, Sam knew he was entangled in a dark legacy that would change everything. and survival meant confronting the unknown, no matter the cost. Sarah Jennings was no stranger to the solitude of the American West. As a state highway patrol officer assigned to patrol the infamous loneliest road in America, Nevada State Route 50. She was accustomed to long stretches of empty highway surrounded only by the vast desert and distant mountain ranges. Yet nothing in her years of service prepared her for the mysterious disappearance that would become one of the most baffling cases of her career. It began on a cold autumn evening when Sarah received a call about a stranded vehicle near mile marker 175. The car, a silver sedan, was reported to be running but without a driver in sight. Arriving at the scene, Sarah's heart quickened as she saw the vehicle, engine still idling, headlights on, but no sign of the driver anywhere. The surrounding desert was silent, except for the faint hum of the engine. Sarah radioed dispatch, reporting the unusual situation. She searched the area meticulously, the nearby brush, the rocky outcrops, even the shallow creek bed, but no footprints, no signs of struggle, nothing. It was as if the driver had simply vanished into thin air. Sarah felt a growing unease. Over the years, she had heard rumors and whispered stories from locals and travelers alike, tales of sudden disappearances, unexplained phenomena, and strange lights flickering along this lonely stretch of highway. But she had always dismissed them as folklore, exaggerations born from isolation and the harsh desert environment. Yet tonight, faced with an empty car and no explanation, she wondered if there might be truth buried in the stories. Sarah's investigation intensified in the following days. She reviewed traffic camera footage from nearby checkpoints, only to find a brief image of the sedan passing through, driver visible, calm and attentive. But after a certain point, the car's journey was lost in a gap where no cameras existed. Witnesses traveling the route around that time reported strange occurrences. Some spoke of flickering lights hovering above the desert floor, others of sudden electronic malfunctions in their vehicles. A handful even described eerie figures glimpsed at the edge of their headlights. Digging deeper, Sarah found records of at least a dozen similar incidents over the past 2 decades. Vehicles found abandoned, drivers missing without trace, always along this desolate road. Patterns emerged, disappearances clustered near particular landmarks, areas where cell phone signals dropped suddenly and where strange electromagnetic readings were occasionally recorded. Sarah's skepticism gave way to concern. The road was more than just a lonely stretch of pavement. It was a place where the ordinary laws of reality seemed to bend. One night, during a routine patrol, Sarah herself experienced something unsettling. Driving alone under a star-studded sky, her radio crackled with static. Her GPS flickered, then died. Suddenly, a faint glow appeared ahead on the horizon, an ethereal light pulsating just beyond the road. Curiosity and caution warred within her, but she pressed forward, hoping to find answers rather than fear. As she neared the glow, her headlights caught movement. A figure standing by the roadside, waving urgently. Sarah slowed and pulled over. But when she stepped out and approached, the figure was gone. Only a set of footprints remained, leading into the darkness beyond the road. The footprints leading into the desert sand were fresh, yet there was no sign of the figure who had left them. Sarah's breath caught as she followed the trail cautiously, the chill of the night settling deeper into her bones. The desert seemed to hold its breath with her, silent and vast. As she traced the footprints deeper into the darkness, a low hum began to rise, a faint vibration in the air, almost imperceptible, but growing steadily. Her radio crackled, distorted voices whispering through the static, but no words could be made out. The temperature dropped suddenly, frosting her breath in the cold air. Sarah's instincts screamed at her to retreat, yet a strange compulsion urged her onward. The footprints stopped abruptly at the edge of a shallow ravine, where the earth seemed scorched and lifeless. Above the ravine, the ethereal glow she had seen earlier pulsed softly, casting an otherworldly light on the rocky walls. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept past, carrying a whisper, a voice barely audible, calling her name. She spun around, but the desert was empty. Back in town, Sarah pored over old police reports and local folklore. The pattern of disappearances stretched back decades, all tied to this stretch of Route 50. Some locals spoke of a veil, a thin barrier between worlds that thinned at certain points along the highway, where travelers could slip through into something beyond understanding. Experts from universities had conducted electromagnetic surveys and reported unusual readings, spikes and nulls where no natural cause could be found. Yet no definitive explanation existed. Sarah's own experiences were dismissed by skeptics, yet she knew what she had felt, a presence both alien and ancient. Weeks passed, and Sarah continued to patrol the highway, vigilant and wary. One evening, as a storm rolled in, her radio once again filled with static. The lights on her dashboard flickered, and the GPS lost signal. Through the rain and wind, the road stretched out, empty and foreboding. Suddenly, headlights appeared in her mirror, rapidly gaining on her vehicle. Panic surged as the tailing car swerved dangerously close. Sarah pushed her cruiser faster, heart pounding. The headlights blinked, then vanished. Minutes later, she pulled over near an abandoned rest stop, the rain lashing the windows. Inside the shelter, she found strange symbols etched into the walls, glowing faintly under the storm's sporadic lightning. The symbols matched those from the old reports, ancient markings meant to protect or warn. As she studied the inscriptions, a cold breath grazed her neck. Spinning around, she found no one, only the relentless storm outside. Sarah realized that the loneliest road was a threshold, a place where the boundaries between realities blurred, where people vanished not by chance, but by forces beyond comprehension. Determined to uncover the truth, she vowed to protect the highway and the travelers who dared traverse it. Her story became a quiet legend among patrol officers, a reminder that sometimes the greatest mysteries are found not in bustling cities, but on the lonely roads that stretch beyond the edges of the map. Alex's family had always loved camping, finding solace in the embrace of nature and the quiet of the wilderness. This summer, they chose Blue Pine Camp, a remote site nestled in dense forests, far from the noise of the city. But what was meant to be a peaceful retreat soon turned into a harrowing ordeal. From the moment they arrived, an unsettling feeling crept over Alex. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, broken only by the rustle of pine needles underfoot. The campsite was isolated, surrounded by towering trees whose shadows stretched like fingers across the clearing. That first night, as the family settled into their tent, strange noises echoed in the darkness. Soft footsteps, low growls, and an occasional snap of a twig. Alex tried to dismiss the sounds as wildlife, but a lingering unease settled deep in his gut. The next morning, Alex noticed peculiar footprints around their campsite, gigantic, with long, clawed toes. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. "Dad, look at these," Alex said, pointing to the tracks pressed into the damp earth.
His father frowned. "Those are huge. Could be a bear, maybe." Alex shook his head. No bear footprints looked like this. Throughout the day, the family kept their guard up. When they hiked nearby, they found more signs: scratches on tree trunks, torn pieces of fabric snagged on branches, and a faint, musky odor that seemed to cling to the air. The forest felt alive, watching. That evening, their car wouldn't start. The battery was dead, and there was no cell reception to call for help. Alex's father tried to fix the car, but it was no use. As night fell again, the family huddled inside their tent, the sounds of the forest growing louder, more threatening. Suddenly, a series of deep guttural growls echoed nearby. The tent fabric trembled as something massive brushed against it. Alex's heart hammered in his chest. They shone their flashlights into the darkness, but all they saw were shifting shadows. The family decided to leave the next morning, but as they packed, Alex caught sight of a small weathered cabin across the clearing. Curious, he approached it cautiously. Inside, dust-covered old furniture, and on a table lay a journal. Alex opened it to find entries detailing the experiences of a previous camper who had encountered the creature, a terrifying being stalking the woods, responsible for several disappearances over the years. The journal spoke of a legend, a guardian of the forest, neither fully beast nor man, who protected the wilderness by scaring away intruders, but at a deadly cost. Alex shivered as he read the final entry. "It watches from the shadows. Beware the footprints." As the family hurried back to their car, the forest seemed to close in around them. The shadows deepened and the growls grew closer. Just as they reached the vehicle, a massive silhouette loomed behind the trees. The creature stepped into the clearing, a towering figure covered in dark fur, with eyes that glowed like embers. The family froze in terror. But then, as if sensing their fear, the creature turned and vanished into the woods, leaving behind a chilling silence. The creature's sudden departure left a heavy silence in the clearing, but the weight of its presence lingered like a dark cloud. Alex's family didn't dare linger. They piled into their car, hearts pounding, the engine finally turning over after a few anxious attempts. As they sped away, the forest seemed to watch them go, the trees standing like silent sentinels guarding their secrets. The distant growls faded, but the memory of those glowing eyes burned bright in Alex's mind. Back home, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something had marked them, a connection between the creature and the shadows that had clung to their trip. The journal he found haunted him. He read it over and over, piecing together the stories of others who had vanished or narrowly escaped the forest's grasp. Determined to understand, Alex reached out to local historians and old-timers who spoke cautiously of the forest's guardian, a spirit of nature twisted by time and isolation. They warned him that Blue Pine Camp was not just a campsite, but a place where the veil between worlds was thin, where legends breathed. Over the following weeks, Alex's nights were plagued by strange dreams, whispers in the wind, footsteps circling his home, shadows flickering just beyond sight. He felt watched, followed by something unseen. His family, shaken but safe, urged him to leave the mystery behind, but Alex knew the forest story was far from over. One evening, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, Alex returned to Blue Pine Camp alone. The forest welcomed him with a chilling stillness. As he approached the clearing, a faint glow emanated from the cabin where he had found the journal. Inside, he found new entries scrawled hastily, a warning and a plea. The writer spoke of a cycle, a time when the Guardian's wrath would rise, demanding a sacrifice to keep the forest's balance. Alex's breath caught. The next full moon was only days away. That night, under the silver light, the forest came alive. The wind whispered ancient songs, and the shadows lengthened into shapes both terrifying and beautiful. Alex stood in the clearing, heart pounding as the Guardian emerged from the darkness, majestic and monstrous, its eyes burning with fierce intelligence. But instead of fear, Alex felt a strange understanding. The creature was not merely a predator, but a protector, bound to the land and its secrets. He spoke softly, offering respect and a promise to honor the forest. The Guardian regarded him for a long moment before retreating, leaving Alex alone beneath the stars. Alex returned home with a new purpose, to protect Blue Pine Camp and the ancient balance it guarded. Though the shadows remained, he knew some mysteries were meant to be respected, not feared. And on quiet nights, when the wind sighs through the pines, Alex can still feel the Guardian's watchful gaze, a reminder that some places hold power beyond human understanding.